This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, show 186.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another video. This is an interesting one. This is a topic that we've never covered. So I have talked to VARs before, so value added resellers. We've talked to them and we've seen the ways their sales engineers work. This is the first time we talk to a channel SE, which means he's an SE who works with the VARs and tries to get them to sell their product over somebody else. And today's guest is Kyle MacArthur. And he's exactly that. He's a channel sales engineer. He works with big partners who will remain nameless, but think of the big four. So he works with them and he tries to get them to sell their product. So we talk about what channel sales engineers are, what are the challenges, and everything related to that. And it was a great conversation because he got me thinking in ways that I've never done before. And after the call, he messaged me and said, like, oh, now I need to think about different ways of explaining things because we never have to explain stuff as like, what about our role, like channel sales engineer? What does that mean exactly? So, hey, if Kyle gets a better definition because of our conversation, I can take credit because, who doesn't like to take credit? So let's just jump into the show. Good evening, Kyle. It's late at night where you're at, right?
It is almost 10 p.m. Kids are heading to bed.
Nice. All right. So you and I have been talking for almost 20 minutes. I mentioned that earlier. It's been a great conversation. I figured maybe we should record it because, that's what we're here for. And we're talking about a whole bunch of different stuff, but maybe we'll start off the same way I usually start off by asking you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kyle MacArthur. I'm a solution consultant that works with partners out of the UK at Pegasystems. My job is really pretty complicated pre-sales enablement strategy. And I say complex because to enable partners for pre-sales, you've got to understand the nature of 100 different partners, and they all have different strengths, weaknesses, ways of working, different tools, different personalities. So it becomes a really interesting chess match of getting people enabled, and it's that's the fluid nature of being a partner solution consultant, enabling these people to sell your product, and you're not possibly going to be in the room.
So you're not going to be working with customers directly. You might not, like you said, you won't be even in the room, but you're still judged. Your performance is based on how much your partners sell, or what is your performance based on?
Yeah, so we will measure how much the partners are selling, both directly and through us, essentially where we are doing the selling and they're implementing or co-selling or standing behind us. So partners range in, there's selling partners that can actually sell and position and pitch products. They can create storyboards and demos. And there's some that would rather someone else do that, even another partner to do that, and they would like to implement. So yeah, we have a really dynamic mix of engagement styles that vary by partner.
I mean, I feel like Quentin Tarantino, we're going to start in the middle and go back to the top of the story. How about we actually, let me know, how did you actually get into becoming a solution consultant for partners?
Really, I applied for the job and loved the manager. He won me over with the kind of the blue sky aspect of the job. There's a lot to do. Wouldn't be easy. That always interests pre-sales people. The problem is complex, which is a very interesting thing to hear about our job. And there was a lot of room to grow the program and mature it. So I was doing a straight solution consultant job in manufacturing, working with like trucking companies in the US out of Chicago. And so I had a life change and we decided to move our family to the UK, and I applied to this position, and I've loved it. It's been really challenging and interesting.
So you just decided one day to move to the UK?
Yeah, I had worked in the UK before for about 10 years, had my two sons over here. I was recruited for a job, kind of an interesting but brutal start to my pre-sales career. I was recruited by a former Siebel VP who wanted, I was a developer at that point, and he knew me and wanted me to develop um, sales operational tools for his sales team, just directly, like whatever he wanted, I'd be his right hand man and create it. So it sounded like an amazing job. Moved to the UK with my family. He quit within a week. And the other sales consultants in the office, I think there was only 3 at that point. They didn't like the kind of the sweetheart deal that this VP recruited me, and this VP actually printed out my pay packet, my offer letter, and left it on the printer as he left the office. It was sitting there, and the office passed it around, and I was the most hated man in the UK for being the American brought over. And they saw my pay and they really hated me. The other sales consultants quit, and I was the only one left standing and became a sales consultant. No one would help me. Really, I reached out to people like Peter Cohen to survive. I had no idea what a sales consultant was. I didn't know what pre-sales was. I'd never done discovery, except in a developer sense, requirements I'd gathered. But meeting with customers, I was a typical back office, developer IT guy, and I'd never spoken in my life. It was the, that, like they say, it's one of the top 3 fears of human beings. That was me. But there was nothing I could do. I was stuck doing it. Luckily, I won the first deal we did. And like I said, I reached out to Peter Cohen and started reading whatever I could, books, and just trying to get better. Out of my whole career, it's been a struggle really to improve, to understand what these really advanced people are talking about. When you first read a book, like Mastering Technical Sales, A Great Demo, or Demo to Win, the words seem to make sense, but until you have experience, you can't apply it. You don't quite know what they're talking about. And that takes some years, I found.
Just to clarify, they didn't hire you as a sales consultant. They hired you as a software developer who will help the sales consultants.
Yes.
But then the person who hired you left. How did you become a sales consultant?
Well, I was the only technical person on the sales team. The other sales consultants quit when they saw, basically when they saw my offer letter. They didn't like it and left. And
so you're voluntold, like that's not what you signed up for.
Right. And I was stuck because this company was sponsoring me to be in the UK. And if I left that job, I'd have 30 days to get my family back out. And we'd already moved everything.
So you had to do what you had to do to take care of your family, basically.
That's right. It was an extremely stressful beginning to the pre-sales role. And it's one of the things that drives me to help others. I had such a rocky start. It was so stressful. I've always thought if I could help someone, I would. When I saw that you had the program called No SC Left Behind, I believe.
Yep.
It impressed me so much to see that, and I thought, this guy's he's gonna help people survive and get them the job. Maybe I can help them keep that job. If I share, I just thought I'll share everything as I have experience. I will share that experience with people and hopefully make it easier for newcomers.
Okay, so many things to talk about. All right. So you didn't want to be an SE. You're kind of forced to be an SE. What was your perception of sales people, sales engineers before you became that?
But before I was in the pre-sales role, I was in IT as a developer and as a security guy. And my exposure to salespeople was repairing and rolling back their own laptops. I was kind of brutal with salespeople installing software that was not certified by IT. I was the person that scanned everyone's laptops and figured out if they were on image or if they'd installed something that was not certified. I would take it back off their machine if I could. And
So those were salespeople who worked for the same company.
that's right.
Okay.
I looked at them as rogues, that they're causing trouble. And later, being in sales, I realized sometimes you get an RFP in a strange format, and you have hours to download some piece of software, to read it, and start responding and get some kind of response back to that client. And that's why it's sometimes so chaotic with what's going on in the laptops.
That's funny. I didn't have a similar experience, but I as a network design engineer at Alcatel-Lucent, I worked with salespeople, and I had such disdain for them because they didn't know what they were doing. Like, the sales engineers sometimes didn't know what they were doing because Nokia sells a broad portfolio of products, and their focus was in an area different than mine. So whenever I'm involved, that means the sales engineer didn't know what to do, which is why they asked for my help. And in my mind, it's like, oh, what are these guys for? And then I realized, like, if they don't close deals, I don't get paid my salary. And it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, but we don't think about it this way. We just think of salespeople as nuisances until we figured out that, oh, we have salespeople in our own company who do the same things that other salespeople do, like they're trying to do to me. So, okay, so you didn't enjoy salespeople, and you didn't have a great start to sales engineering from a emotional perspective. When you had the chance, why didn't you find a different role than sales engineer? Because most people would have said, I don't want this is stupid, I didn't pick this, I want to do what I do. Why didn't you just go back to being an IT guy at some other company?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've considered that. What hooked me, I think, is I remember working in call centers, selling CRM into call centers, and doing on-site discovery. We would generally go there for a full day. I would sit with people and look at what they're doing, talk to them, and do discovery. On breaks, I would go outside, just have a drink or whatever, and see the shattered lives, the poor people on those phones that just got the F-bomb like 90 times and had to keep smiling, and they're shaking, and the women are holding each other. And it just seemed like I can't abandon these people. It just kind of hit me like, this is not just selling. This is literally trying to save people and giving them a better defense, a better tool, preparing them so that they're not going to be outside crying and holding each other. That's kind of what I thought is. And then when I looked around at people doing it, some didn't seem to care or take it seriously. I just thought, I'm going to be the one that takes this seriously and helps people. A bit of a interest in the problem as well. I mean, it's a fascinating problem, is trying to help people understand software, which is quite complicated. But yeah, that's why I think I never left, is I just felt a bit of a duty to do this right and make a difference.
So you're talking about like the process of sales engineering specifically, not the product that you're selling. It's just you kind of fell in love with the process of sales engineering because you thought it would help salespeople, I guess.
I thought it would help the for instance, the call center agents. Those are the ones that seem to be in the pain that changed my outlook on the job. These call centers might have 2,000 agents, and just sitting with them and seeing the pain they're in when they're on break, it just changes you. It's horrifying what some of these call center jobs do to people.
How did you get to meet the call center people to begin with?
You mean in terms of sales process getting in, or?
Well, like you're saying, you saw the call center people. They were part of your company. Like, how did you see them?
So we would, I would do on-site discovery with a large company that has a big call center, I'd visit the
Okay.
call center itself, and I would interview people like the the analytics team, the outbound sales team, the inbound service teams. And in between, you're waiting to talk to the next person. You may go out for lunch, and you're going out to the picnic area where all the rest of the real agents are taking their lunches. That's how I ended up getting a lot more insight into the job. That changed me more than sitting at the desks themselves.
Okay, so going out and meeting people helped you more than sitting behind a desk and, assuming what people thought. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And so you've been direct, and now you're focused almost solely on channel partners.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest difference that you've seen between like a direct SE, direct seller versus a channel seller?
I think it's a matter of a lot bigger relationship map. So I think in a client, you can focus on that client and kind of build a little list of the decision makers and the people that are most important to those decision makers. You might have 12 people you're talking to. But if you think of that same thing across 50 partners, say, or let's just say 10 partners, you've got that 12-person map for 10 partners. That's 120 people now that you've got to maintain a relationship with. And each one is a bit different, and they're selling all of your products perhaps. So you've got to prepare them to sell all your products in all their different ways. So I just think the complexity of what you need to prepare them for is higher than being able to focus intensely on a deal and just those decision makers. Secondarily, you don't necessarily even get to see what that partner said to the customer. You prepare them, you hope for the best, you support them, you offer to do run-throughs with them on the demo or the presentation, but in the end of the day, many times you don't get to be in the final presentation. So it's a bit like sending the baby bird off. You just hope you've trained them and it's going to work out. That's completely different than being in the room, reading the room, and feeling like you have the control and the background to save a conversation that's going the wrong direction. You don't even know what conversation they're having.
One thing I've noticed, I've worked with both channels and direct as part of like the same role. It's not like two different roles where one is direct, one was with channel. And I noticed that channel SEs don't always want to learn your product. Like they're selling like, I don't know, they have 10 other partners.
Mm-hmm.
And those 10 other partners have either more higher value products that they sell or easier the products that they sell or whatever it is. So it's not always, in my mind, like, oh, they're my partner, they want to sell my product, but they could be selling the competitor's product as well.
Generally, they are, especially if you're talking to a big partner, they're selling all of the competitors often. And that's the game. So you've got, part of it is you're selling the value of your product and its ability to be sold to them. And you're saying, this product will work for you. And in certain situations, it will work better for you in multiple ways than the competitor. And you try to explain that to them. But it is a bit of you're grabbing mind share from a competitive product that they also sell. And sometimes you have to help them with the architecture of our product will work with that product. So you've got the case of sometimes saying we're the better product, but as well saying, and if you need both, here's how that has to work, or here are ways that can work.
So if you're selling direct, you're only selling your product and you're working with a customer, you're trying to solve the customer's business problem. And I feel their business problem is very different from the partner's business problem. What do you see as the partner's business problem, and why would they sell your product over somebody else?
Well, I think ideally the the partner is somewhat or fairly neutral in looking for the very best solution, which may be a combination of products to serve their customer. The big partners are solving enormous transformation problems. And so you might say it's not uncommon for them to be selling competitive products within this larger multi-year transformation. It's just who does what in that transformation. And each competitive product wants to say they can do a bit more or all and replace other products. But you are going to find that there'll be a mixture of competitors' products and phases and transitions within a big transformation. It can be enormously complicated. And so it's a constant battle of awareness for what is the latest your product can do, what problems can it solve, why is it better, or how does it compare to the competition that solves the problem as well.
All right. And I always found, like, if I make it easier or convince them that it's easier for them to sell my product, and I'm not talking about the monster partners, like I'm not talking the big multi-billion-dollar deal partners. I'm talking like small partners, channel partners. I just had to prove to them that my product was easier to sell than the competitor, so that they can go in and out. Did you see anything similar to that?
I think that's half the battle is where is this the easiest to sell, and then how to sell it. Okay. So you find the use cases in which it should be as close to an open and shut case as possible. This is the one thing we do that you are not going to do with another competitor. And if you find this case, you will win this case if you present it correctly. And here's how you present it correctly. So both of those are true.
So is it like channel partners are, when there's an end customer, are multiple channel partners competing for that customer's business? And
they can be.
Your company is working with all of them?
Yeah, and you so I mean, I've seen it two and three-way splits. Mainly, I've seen a two-way split where occasionally we're supporting two different partners, and we have to be very clinical and professional about keeping a separation and fairly supporting them independently and share no information across. But generally, partners want to specialize because it's easier to win and it saves on resources. Vendors want partners to specialize, so they support them in that. And we try to early on prevent a big collision where two partners are wasting resources fighting for the same piece of work. What we try to do is steer one for one part of the work and steer the other one to a different part, maybe early, late, maybe one product and another product. So maybe someone's doing the marketing side, someone's doing the CRM side, or someone's doing the early implementation, someone's doing the later implementation. So you got to get creative sometimes with how you structure the territory, you might say.
It sounds complicated. Like, I know if I'm going direct, I'm not competing against myself. But if I'm going through a channel, two channels can be competing. So you have to make sure that they're not competing, so that it's not a race to the bottom when it comes to pricing. Because if they're providing the same solution, you can. Is it fair to say that selling through channels is a lot more challenging than selling through direct?
I think certainly it appears that way. I think there's more to think about. But just as you said that, I was thinking, yeah, but I've been a direct sales consultant for more years. So it seems, of course, more familiar. And I've battled through it enough times through that cycle that I have experience, and I know the validity of what someone's saying or how important something in discovery is. And I would guess if you spend that same amount of time in the partner world, it's just as easy. But the one thing you're not going to get with partners is that same level of direct access, and you don't control them. Like if you might think a solution consulting manager has his solution consultants report to him.
Yeah.
Their partners don't report to us, so we have to be, friends. We have to be kind and interest them in selling our product, but we cannot force them to do anything really. That's a big difference in the power structure. We actually have to sell.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest challenge that I see. When you can go work with a customer, you can work directly, you can solve their problem, you can get them emotionally attached to the solution that you're providing.
Sure.
And it's like working with realtors to sell a property or to buy a property. You can't play on the heartstrings of realtors. That's why they have a good buffer. I don't have to make that. I can tell my realtor, if it's not that price, I'm not buying it or whatever, and then they can make that decision not to bring it to me. Or I guess I think that's a good example, but I'll have to formulate it better next time. But going through a reseller, you have no control, basically. I mean, you just said it, like, you have to be nice and you have to be kind and you have to hope that they offer your solution. That's where I find the difficulty, because I'm not as much as I'm not in control as much. How do you overcome that feeling?
I don't think you can overcome it, but it does make you think a lot harder on a daily basis of, are we doing the right things? How are they feeling about the help we're giving them? Can we do it better? Can we supply them with tools that make it easier, cut days or weeks out of the sales cycle? And yeah, you're always second guessing, can we do this better? And because you don't have that direct control over anyone, there's no reporting structure. You have to be creative. You have to use your influence and selling skills to what degree you can, to have interesting, lunch and learns, or webinars, whatever is your style of working with the partners, so that they want to talk to you, they learn from you, they remember it, and they ask you for help.
Another thing that I was just thinking of, we were talking about core versus specialist SE, or generalist versus specialist SE.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a generalist SE at a company and be a channel SE, right? As a channel SE, you're most likely a core SE. You're not specialized in one item or another. Is that accurate?
Right. I would say being a generalist helps a lot, because you're going to work with multiple partners across all the products, across different industries. So,
and then when you work with the actual partners, their SEs are even now more of a generalist, because now they're working with multiple vendors.
Well, I think so. In most of the partners, we work with a fragment of their business called the practice that is selling our product. And so each product they're selling has its own business unit, essentially, which they call a practice. So you might have a Salesforce practice, a Microsoft Dynamics practice, a Pega practice. So we'd be working with the Pega practice, trying to help them, support them, enable them, grow them. And other competitive vendors would be doing the same, but in the practice for their product.
Okay, so
it's like multiple trees.
So each vendor has their own SEs who solely learn on their product, on like the practice product.
Yeah, so a large partner would have some SEs that are specialized and are only working on your product, and those are the ones we'd be working with.
So how okay, now this is very good. I'm enjoying this conversation because I'm learning a lot today. How do like partners offer multiple solutions? Like, hey, how do they decide between Pega and somebody else if the people who know Pega only know Pega, and the people who know something else only know something else? Are they competing against themselves at that point?
Yeah, there's some internal considerations for them as well. It happens at the higher levels where I think account managers, account directors, and technical account managers and technical directors, architects might know of multiple products, propose multiple products, and have architectures that include multiple products for different use cases. And at the higher level, those are the people you're trying to reach as a partner organization. Is you want to reach to the architects that have the power to choose which product they propose to the client, and get to them and say, here's when it's best to propose our product. Here's what we can do. Here's how we work with the other products that you also use, that you also sell. And then, since they're a resource that the partner comes to internally, they'll come to this architect and say, I have a banking problem. They need to do better marketing. What do you propose? And that internal architect will say, well, we sell Pega. Pega can do this. We sell Salesforce. Salesforce can do this. Given what you just told me, I would say a little of this and a little of this. And they would almost like write a doctor's prescription. Here's what you do. So that's where the product suggestions come in. Once you suggest a product, and once the partnership has gone with what product they want to use, then they get to the specialists that are in the practice, and they'll implement it.
I mean, we're coming up to the end of our time. I know it's late. It's almost 10 o'clock, 10:30 at your time. Mm-hmm. So I want to be respectful of your time. Last question before we jump into the not so fire round. Who would make a good, who would make a good channel SE? Can someone brand new, never been an SE in their life before, be a good channel SE, or do they need a bit of more experience?
I think it's generally a more experienced sales engineer that's comfortable already with the sales engineering process and at least a product. So that once that learning is under your belt, then learning the partner side, which we're discussing here, there's a added layer of complexity to it. Then you could focus on that. I think trying to do both at the same time from scratch would be, it would slow things down. It's doable, but I wouldn't suggest it. I think a senior sales consultant would have an easier time doing partners.
That makes sense. Based on what you just said today, it's like you need to be like relationship focused as much as technical focused, which as a junior SE trying to learn both might be a little bit difficult.
And I'll give you one more example of the complexity. So if you think of the partners, they all have their own sales cycle. So they, how they qualify or what they call it and how long they spend on it. And then what do they call the next piece? Is it discovery? Is it solution design? Yeah. They've all got a different way of doing it. You've got to be able to very quickly understand what they're doing, map it to what you're doing in a generic way, and then help them immediately. Say, oh, yeah. I see, you're here, but I would call it here, and then I would help you like this, right? But you might have to do that with 10 different partners. So having already experience and comfort with a sales cycle would make that pretty simple.
That's funny. So our company got acquired by another company, and for the longest time, each had its own sales cycle. So even within the same company, because one was acquired and one was like the original, he kind of had to talk both sales cycles. So that's
mapping.
So we're going to jump into the not so fire round. These are the same 4 questions we ask every guest. We usually take our time answering it, but I'll leave that to you, how fast or how slow you want to answer, because I'm sure you have some nighttime routine that you need to start maybe potentially soon. All right, starting with the first one. What do you love about being a channel partner or channel SE right now?
I kind of love the complexity. I think it's just as a sales consultant, I'm drawn to unsolvable problems. If I hear it can't be done, I know it can be done. I just this is one that's it's interesting, it's deep, it's changing all the time, and it's really interesting trying to figure out how to do this. I don't know if you share this idea, but I don't think pre-sales is all figured out yet. I think we've got a lot of people now comparing notes and trying to figure out how this is really done. And we're way far ahead on that side compared to the partner side. Because if you think for every 50 sales consultants, there's one partner sales consultant, right? We've got a lot of time to mature this. We need a lot more effort put in. And I don't even think we've solved the first one of basic pre-sales. So that's what I like about it.
100%. I just posted a video on YouTube about the 10 lies, mainly because we're still trying to figure out what sales engineering is and what it isn't.
Even sales, yeah.
One of them, I'll leave a link in the show notes, but one of them is like, oh, a sales engineer is an engineer who couldn't cut it as an engineer. And I've seen that in a few different places. And like, you hear the complexity of what we're talking about. Someone who knows the technology and can talk to people. You think someone who couldn't cut it as an engineer would be able to cut it as a sales engineer. So
yeah.
All right.
I think we talked earlier about I got the feeling from some sales directors that they thought sales engineers were fallen salespeople that couldn't make it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, it's the best role in the world, and whoever gets here doesn't mind staying here for a long time. Except, like, the engineers think we're defective engineers, and the salespeople would think we're defective salespeople. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. All right. The second question of the not so firearms, like, what would you change about the role today?
More people would help. If I could wave a magic wand, more insight into what the partners are doing. Data is the fuel of this job. If you think about, I have to support people so that they can sell our product, and I'm not going to be in the room, so I have to do the best I can to have them prepared. I would love to be in the room if there's some way to get feedback, record that demo, see really what they delivered. I could help them immensely, and that's the challenge with partners.
Why can't you be in that room?
Some of the client relationships are trusted and confidential, including non-disclosure agreements, and I'm not part of that. Sometimes there's just a kind of a personal chemistry that they don't want the vendor in because it makes it look like they're favoring a vendor, whereas the partner is actually somewhat agnostic and trying to propose the best overall solution. And the worst thing for them would be that if the client thinks they're bought and paid for by a vendor, then their trust goes away. So that, there's multiple considerations, but those are two.
Okay. I guess we can have a discussion at some point on how we can improve data gathering from partners. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think the demo automation platforms are one way that we could maybe help partners with that. I'm thinking things like Consensus.
Yeah, Consensus is a good tool. Navitech, Walnut, Reprise, all of them can be used for building stuff. So, yeah. All right. You mentioned a few people and resources already, like Demo to Win, great demo, and Mastering Technical Sales. Is there a resource that you can think of that not many people know about to help improve sales engineering, whether it's for channel partners specifically or any other soft skills?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot out there on channel partners, but there are some forums. I would say in terms of resources, I kind of feel like this. It's like dating, where people say you've already met your wife, you just didn't realize it at the time. You've already got the books you need to be what you need to be. You just don't practice them. You don't realize it, right? You've not applied those techniques. Your podcast, other podcasts and posts going on, they've got gems in them. the only difference between being an amazing superstar SE and not is applying these gems. And so I would almost say, I wouldn't worry about a specific book. Just take a few things and really apply them, and get some buddies and drill them together like a sport, and experiment. That's what I think. We're drowning in great ideas now. I would say.
Nice. So last question of the not so fire round. Is there a habit that you're working on today to improve, whether it's in your personal life or professional life?
I would say two things I've been working on this year. One is thanking people. I try to set this goal of every Friday, I try to thank someone for helping me. And it may be, someone in IT, maybe someone in operations. There's all kinds of people it takes to run an organization. And many of them are unsung heroes. They don't get credit. And I try to so I set aside 30 minutes and I try to really write them an actual thanks of specifically what they did, not just a thanks. We have this internal app at Pega where you can thank people, and everyone in the company can see it. But I try to really be specific in detail. What did they do and why did I like it? What's the impact? And I thank them. That's one thing I'm trying to work on. So I just have it in my calendar every Friday. The other thing I've been working on is trying to think harder about what I'm doing. I call it a horizontal list instead of a vertical list. So let me explain that silly wording, but often people will record vertical lists of many ideas they have. They'll jot them down. I've got 20 ideas. I add a couple every other day. When I come across an idea, and so you might say their list is vertical. It's getting longer, and I try to go horizontal and take any one idea and look at strategically. What's the value? I look at what's the personal value. Does it interest me? Does it work for my career? Does it work for the partner? Does it work in the long run? Can I grow it? Is this something that could create a program that's larger than a single idea? And so I just start looking at, the horizontal aspect is how far can I stretch this value? How many people can I touch with it? How can I test it and get feedback and adapt it, instead of working on recording more ideas? Just what can I do with the one? So I call it, horizontal list is I just work across how many different avenues can I apply the same idea in.
I need to absorb that. I really need to, it's kind of what you said earlier. You already have the book. You just need to apply it. And what you're saying here is, it doesn't matter the amount of ideas that you get, that you have. It's just, if you don't think about any of them, what's the point? But you take one and you drill down, or you take multiple and you drill down,
and then I try to do it. I just try to be brave and do it, and get it out there. And if people hate it, that's fine. Then I try to think, how can I turn this sideways then? Because that didn't work the way I did it the first time. But that's fine. So I try not to be paralyzed in analysis and thinking, how could this be the final diamond? I think, how can I do this right now today, get some feedback from somebody, and keep going and grow this thing.
I might steal that idea.
Steal it. It's fun. In fact, I can send you a good tool that I'm working on to do that for you.
If you send it to me, I'll the next 411 we send like a weekly a newsletter. If you send me that tool, I'll post it on the email so other people can see it as well, if that's okay with you.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. That brings us to the end of our conversation. If people want to reach out to you to say hi or to thank you for this amazing chat, at least amazing for me, where can they do that?
I'd say contact me directly on LinkedIn. You can send me a direct message. If you want to talk partners, I'd be happy to jump on a call and discuss what I know, help you with some problems, and maybe work out some ideas.
All right. Well, thank you,
Happy.
Kyle, for coming on. This has been very informational for me. Like, I appreciate it. So, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Have a good night.
You too. All right. And that's the end of the show. Thank you, Kyle, for coming on so late in the UK. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. I get to be exposed to a lot of different types of people through the podcast, which is amazing. And hopefully I can pass that along to you. And maybe you decide to become a channel SE at some point. Maybe you decided that, hey, I was thinking about it and now I don't want it anymore. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you understand a little bit more. We have other people coming on to talk about channel sales engineers, not necessarily with the big four companies. It could be like value-added resellers that are smaller, local, and we'll talk about how they can work, how they work with them to actually sell. So stay tuned for those. With that, this is Ramsey signing off.